Tonight at 5 o'clock, we have now learned of a guilty plea in a 2017 hit-and-run crash that critically injured a Buffalo photographer. Larry Jones pleaded guilty to assault. Photographer Will Jones, no relation to the defendant, was in a coma for weeks. The accident happened at the intersection of Maston and East Utica. Over the summer, the victim spoke with our Claudine Ewing.
What would you want to say to him face-to-face in court?
I would like to just convey to him the seriousness of what he did and how it's changed me physically and mentally. It's been a lot. I hope to be able to see him and just, if allowed to, tell him face to face what he has done.
Larry Jones has been released from jail until he is sentenced in May. He faces 7 years in prison.